Welcome to the Forgotten Narrator. There is no empire in the galaxy as vast or as resilient as the Imperium of Man. Its banners stretch across 1,000,000 worlds, its armies are uncountable, and its rule is eternal. At least, that is what its heralds proclaim, with thunderous fanfare and the holy fire of unquestioning devotion. But beneath the thunder of bolters and the litanies of machine priests, behind the golden statues and Gothic spires, lies a truth so horrifying, so fundamentally vile, that even the most devout might falter if they dared to look too closely. The Imperium is not glorious, it is not noble, it is not even sane, it is a rotting corpse of a civilization propped up by fear, violence, and lies. A theocratic regime born of desperation and sustained by horror. For all its talk of humanity, it has long since abandoned what makes us human. The truth is simple and terrible. The Imperium of Man is a nightmare without end. Human life means nothing in the Imperium. Not metaphorically. Not in the way bureaucracies of old Earth once devalued lives through negligence or callous policy. No, in the Imperium, human life is functionally, spiritually, and intentionally worthless. It is a resource to be expended, as common as dirt, and treated with even less reverence. In the grinding, monstrous machinery of galactic war, the bodies of men, women, and children are mere fuel, both literally and figuratively, to be burned in the sacred engines of survival. Every single day, tens of thousands of psychers are gathered by the black ships of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica. They are terrified, trembling individuals torn from their families or rounded up from birth. Most are executed immediately upon arrival. Their minds are unstable, their souls a danger. Those deemed barely suitable are given two paths: servitude or sacrifice. Those sacrificed feed the Golden Throne, their agony converted into a temporary extension of the Emperor's psychic beacon, the Astronomicon. They die screaming, melted away in soul and flesh, their only legacy being another day's worth of navigation. Their reward? Oblivion. Their crime? Being born a psyker. This process is not hidden. It is not apologized for. It is a ritual. A sacrifice on a scale so incomprehensible that it has become normalized, even sanctified. Billions across the Imperium accept it as necessary. They do not question it, because to question it is to court heresy. And heresy means death, not just for the questioner, but for entire communities. The horror isn't just that psychers are burned alive. The horror is that no one dares care. And psychers are not alone. The Imperium's penal worlds teem with prisoners whose crimes range from genuine treason to the smallest acts of defiance or mere accusations without trial. These inmates are often pressed into the ranks of the penal legions, disposable troops sent ahead of real soldiers to soak up enemy fire, clear minefields with their bodies, or serve as human shields. Explosive collars detonate if they flee. Their courage is irrelevant. Their obedience is mechanical. Their lives end in meaningless bloodshed, far from any mercy or recognition. But even those not labeled psyker or prisoner live only to be spent. The Departamento Munitorum manages populations not as citizens, but as resources, statistical masses assigned to war zones, labor facilities, or death worlds. Birth rates are tallied like crops. Losses are expected. The tithes demanded from each world, in flesh, material, and spirit, are absolute. If a planet fails, it is punished. Sometimes entire worlds are sterilized, their populations deemed unworthy of contributing to the great human machine. There are forges on Mars and other forge worlds where tech adepts have replaced all but the most essential organs with circuitry. These once human beings churn out weapons and war machines tirelessly, their lives a ceaseless rhythm of production and worship. Many no longer remember they were ever born. They are cogs, willingly sacrificed to the divine machine. Not with pride, with purpose instilled so deeply they no longer comprehend horror. Even the venerated Astra Militarum reflects this cruelty. Regiments raised from hive slums or feral worlds are shipped en masse to the front, often without training, armor, or adequate supplies. They are not expected to survive. Survival is a luxury, not a goal. Victory is measured not in tactical brilliance, but in bodies stacked higher than the enemy's. Commissars shoot their own men for retreating. Morale is enforced through terror. Heroes are not praised. They are silenced before their glory inspires insubordination. There are factories on Scintilla where children born into the manufactoria live their entire lives without seeing the sun. Their bones bend under gravity-forged machines, their lungs blackened by dust. They are born in debt to the Imperium and die having paid none of it. Their prayers are automated chants recited between shifts. They do not dream. Dreaming is punishable. Across agri-worlds, humans are engineered to harvest endlessly. Slaves in all but name. On death worlds, native populations are recruited under gunpoint. In orbiting stations, vacuum-dwelling serfs live in pressurized hells, their lives devoted to repairing the hulls of ships they will never set foot on. It is not cruelty by accident. It is design. The Imperium's strength is measured in how many lives it can waste and still march forward. This is not a civilization that saves its people. It is not a society built to protect, to nurture, or even to endure in any noble sense. It is a galactic meat grinder whose only goal is to persist, not to evolve, not to thrive, but to continue existing no matter how much must be sacrificed. Its citizens are not even allowed to believe they deserve more. Humanity, in the eyes of the Imperium, is not sacred. Only the Emperor is. Only the Imperium is. The individual is an infection, a heresy, a spark of rebellion waiting to burn. Better that they be crushed, better that they die, better that they never learn what it means to live. If there is a hell, it is shaped like a hive world. These planetary nightmares are monuments not to civilization, but to its absolute failure. A billion-story insult to everything that once made humanity noble. The sheer scale of these cities defies understanding. Spires scrape the upper atmosphere, choking the sky with pollution while the lower levels drown in perpetual night. Billions upon billions of souls are crammed into endless megastructures, stacked atop one another like insects in a tomb that reaches from the crust to the clouds. Here there is no day. The sun does not shine in the underhive. Light is a luxury, and power grids falter as often as they function. The air tastes of rust and ash, and the water, when it comes, is thick with chemical residue, passed through rusted pipes older than entire civilizations. Children are born in darkness, grow in darkness, and die without ever seeing a star. The scent of decay is ever present, not just of the dead, but of the living, because even life itself rots in the Imperium's forgotten depths. These cities are alive with disease, crime, and despair, but not alive in any wholesome way. More like a corpse that refuses to stop twitching. Gang wars erupt daily, fought with improvised weapons and salvaged las pistols. Arbiters and enforcers patrol the higher levels with brutal efficiency, but they do not venture below unless sanctioned for purge. The underhive is lawless, a crucible where the weak are consumed and the strong are transformed into something worse. Not better, never better, just worse. Survival in these conditions breeds monsters, not mutants or daemons, though those come too. No, the real monsters are the desperate. Hive life strips away everything that makes a person human. Compassion is a liability, hope is poison. You learn to betray before you're betrayed, to kill before you're killed, to hide before they notice you exist. Mothers sell their children for rations, brothers turn on each other for a handful of credits. Trust dies in the first breath you take after birth, smothered by the stink of the manufactoria. And yet, for the Imperium, the hives are triumphs. The administratum sings their praises in reports and ceremonies. Billions of workers crammed into one world. How efficient. What a marvel of population density, they claim, as if the scale of suffering is some kind of merit. The planet of Necromunda alone produces countless regiments for the Astra Militarum, all hardened in the fires of hive combat. Entire generations raised in gang warfare, then thrown into planetary assaults with hardly a change of scenery. What more could the Imperium ask for? Industries never sleep. Assembly lines thunder day and night. The tech adepts praise the machine's spirit with oil and blood, maintaining relics of industry so old no one remembers how they work. Workers toil in shifts that never end, collapsing from exhaustion only to be dragged away and replaced without pause. If you're lucky, you live long enough to die in your sleep. If you're unlucky, you collapse into a grinder or melt in an acid vat. The manufactoria cares not. On the mid-hive levels, things are better, which is to say, the walls are cleaner, the gangs are subtler, and the oppression wears a more professional face. Nobility live in gleaming spires above, completely detached from the horrors below. They sip rare amasec, dine on off-world delicacies, and speak of duty to the Imperium with mouths that have never known hunger. They host galas while millions starve beneath them. Their palaces are built on the bones of the lower levels, their power funded by misery. The Adeptus Arbites enforce order with brutal impartiality. Justice is not blind, it is brutal, blindfolded and armed with a shock maul. Suspected criminals are shot in the street. Entire blocks are purged for housing a mutant. Surveillance is constant. Informants thrive, fear governs. To speak ill of the Imperium is to invite death, not only upon yourself but your family, your friends, your entire hab unit. Loyalty is demanded but never rewarded. There is no escape, no ascension. The caste system is ironclad. Even ambition is dangerous. The Imperium does not want thinkers. It does not want innovators. It wants workers, obedient, terrified, and replaceable. The Hive ensures this. Schools are indoctrination centers. Entertainment is scarce, regulated, and often violent. Public executions serve as reminders. Even rest is tainted by sirens, riots, and the constant rattle of industry. And when the hives grow too bloated, when rebellion brews or production falters, exterminatus is not off the table. Entire hives have been glassed from orbit, not for harboring demons, not for betraying the Imperium, but simply for becoming inefficient. The hive is a prison. But unlike any prison built by past civilizations, there is no warden with a key. There is only inertia, a system so large and so cruel that it continues because no one can stop it. This is not civilization, this is damnation. And the people who live here, they do not live. They endure, they persist. And that persistence is the only victory they are ever allowed. There is no greater terror in the Imperium than the ecclesiarchy, because its horror is not hidden in shadow or cloaked behind bureaucracy. It is exalted, celebrated, and imposed with sacred violence. It does not whisper, it sings. It bellows through cathedral-sized loudspeakers, etched in gold and stained with blood. That faith is the highest virtue, and doubt, the most unforgivable sin. The Imperium's state religion is not merely dogmatic, it is apocalyptic. Its clergy do not save souls, they burn bodies, command armies, and preach annihilation with gleeful conviction. The Adeptus Ministorum, known commonly as the ecclesiarchy, is a vast, ever-hungry beast that touches every part of imperial life. It is not just a church, it is the very nervous system of the Imperium's collective soul. Its sermons dictate planetary law, its clerics hold more power than governors, its inquisitors and confessors are feared more than Xenos. Their robes are lined with armor, their prayers are weapons, their relics drip with incense and ichor. And always, always they speak of the Emperor. Not the man he was, not the philosopher king, the scientist, the builder of unity. That version of the Emperor is long buried. The ecclesiarchy has replaced him with a god, a burning, vengeful god who demands absolute submission. To love the Emperor is not enough. One must fear him, worship him, bleed for him, kill for him, and die screaming his name. Doubt is heresy. Curiosity is heresy. Questioning a priest is heresy. Not kneeling fast enough is heresy. And heresy has only one answer: fire. The most terrifying thing about the ecclesiarchy is that it does not lie. Its priests believe every word they say. They are not charlatans, they are fanatics. Many have seen visions in the warp. Some have performed miracles. And yet, instead of turning these experiences into compassion, they turn them into crusades. Mercy is weakness. Pity is corruption. The only way to serve the Emperor is to destroy everything that might offend him, and the list of offenses is infinite. Sisters of Battle, the Adepta Sororitas, are the ecclesiarchy's holy wrath made flesh. Clad in ceramite, wielding bolters and flamers, they are living icons of purity. They do not forgive. They do not retreat. They do not doubt. If ordered to purge a village suspected of harboring witches, they do not hesitate. If commanded to hold a shrine against a Xenos invasion, they stand and die, singing hymns as their flesh melts from plasma fire. They are heroines in the eyes of the faithful, and nightmares to those deemed impure. Public executions are not merely punishment, they are pageantry. Witch burnings are held in temple squares. Heretics are flayed alive before shrieking congregations. On shrine worlds, entire populations gather for mass flagellation, wailing in ecstatic agony. The faithful are told that pain is a gift, that suffering pleases the Emperor, and those who endure it without protest are praised. Those who break are labeled traitors. Children are taught these rituals from infancy. There is no innocence, only varying degrees of guilt. Even worlds untouched by war are not free of the ecclesiarchy's grasp. Temples dominate skylines. Chaplains and confessors attend every military campaign. Priests monitor every level of governance, ensuring that every decree, every economic decision, every word spoken in public aligns with the imperial creed. If it does not, the consequences are swift. Political leaders disappear. Communities are condemned. Cities burn under the shadow of ecclesiastical wrath. The ecclesiarchy also controls media, art, and education. All must serve the creed. Any deviation is censored, destroyed, and remembered only as a lesson in heresy. Painters, poets, and playwrights create nothing new, only reiterations of imperial glory. Music becomes hymn, language becomes scripture. Thought itself is policed, sculpted into shapes that cannot conceive of rebellion. The past is rewritten to serve doctrine. History becomes hagiography. There are no mistakes, only holy trials. The horror is not that people live in fear, it is that they rejoice in it. Faith is the only joy allowed. Love, art, ambition, all must be filtered through devotion. To be devout is not merely to believe, but to suppress. To deny one's own doubt so completely that reality itself bends around the lie. There are priests who have never laughed, sisters who have never slept without a rosary in their hand, children who have never seen a star but can recite every litanic verse from memory. And in the rare moments when true miracles occur, when the emperor's will manifests in light or saints rise from the dead, the ecclesiarchy responds not with humility, but with fire. These events are sanctified, yes, but also locked down, buried in protocol, wrapped in layers of censorship and fear. Because even miracles must conform. Even the divine must obey the creed. The ecclesiarchy does not fear daemons. It does not fear Xenos. It fears only one thing, a future not ruled by it. A future where the emperor is remembered, not as a god of war, but as a man who dreamed of peace. And so it wages its holy war, not just on enemies without, but on ideas within. A war with no end, because the alternative is unthinkable. This is not religion, this is domination. And the faithful do not kneel out of love. They kneel because to stand is to burn. From a distance they look like gods, towering figures clad in Baroque armor, their every movement a hymn of destruction, their presence an icon of righteous wrath. The Space Marines, the Adeptus Astartes, are the Imperium's ultimate warriors. To most citizens they are living saints, the Emperor's angels of death. But to those who look closer, who strip away the myths and view these warriors for what they truly are, the illusion shatters. What remains is not nobility. What remains is terror. Space Marines are not men. That is not metaphor, nor an insult, nor an attempt at poetic detachment. They are literally not human. Their bodies have been mutilated, reshaped by ancient bioengineering, and subjected to rituals that erase fear, emotion, and identity. They are built for war, and only war. Their hearts beat differently. Their blood can clot wounds instantly. Their minds are conditioned to suppress doubt and exterminate hesitation. They do not fight because they believe. They fight because they are compelled, molded from birth to know no other existence. And what is the cost of such transformation? It is not just physical. Space Marines lose their childhoods, their dreams, their names. Recruited, more accurately, abducted, as children from death worlds and hive gangs, they are broken down completely. Rituals of terror and pain are inflicted to test their worth. Those who fail are discarded or die. Those who survive are implanted with organs that rewrite their biology. Their skin thickens. Their minds are reprogrammed. Over years, their humanity is surgically and spiritually extinguished. Their indoctrination is absolute. Every waking thought is shaped by the chapter's doctrine. There is no room for dissent, for ambiguity, for individuality. A Marine of the Black Templars knows only holy war. A Marine of the Iron Hands sees emotion as weakness. The Night Lords were taught fear as a weapon, while the Space Wolves revere the primal hunt. These are not philosophical schools. They are mental prisons, identities forced into the flesh until nothing remains but the mask. Even among themselves, there is no camaraderie as we understand it. There is no family, no warmth, no brotherhood in the human sense. Bonds are forged in blood, not affection. A Marine may mourn a fallen battle brother, but that mourning is ritualized, stripped of sentiment. Their hearts do not break, their souls do not weep. They remember because memory is part of duty. Not because they feel. And when a Marine is deployed, the horror magnifies. They do not negotiate, they do not de-escalate. They arrive in thunderous drop pods and flame entire city blocks. If the enemy hides among civilians, the civilians are treated as acceptable collateral. If a rebellion erupts on a hive world, Space Marines are sent not to bring peace, but to impose annihilation. Their loyalty is not to the people. It is to their chapter, their primarch, and the Imperium's unfeeling command. We tell ourselves they are heroes, but heroes save. Heroes sacrifice for others. Astartes sacrifice everything, but not to save others. They sacrifice to become better killers. Their lives are an unbroken chain of battlefields, and when there are no wars to fight, they train in cathedrals of steel and silence, awaiting the next call to violence. When peace descends, they do not rejoice. They prepare for its end. Some chapters descend into madness. The flesh tearers teeter constantly on the edge of berserk bloodlust. The space wolves grow ever closer to bestial regression. The cursed founding birthed entire legions with genetic flaws so horrific that they were purged in secret. And yet, the Imperium persists in using them, not despite these flaws, but because of them. A weapon that is feared is useful. A weapon that might turn on its master is still better than no weapon at all. And then there are the successors. Thousands of chapters with variations so extreme they border on psychological mutation. The Red Scorpions see all other chapters as impure. The Mortifactors commune with the dead. The Executioners revel in decapitation rituals. These are not anomalies. These are the norm. The Astartes are not a unified force. They are a fractured, myth-haunted cult of warriors, each driven by its own inherited madness. The Imperium calls it diversity of tactics. It is, in truth, institutionalized psychosis. The ultimate horror lies in their purpose. They were created by the Emperor not to uplift humanity, but to protect it by force. To wage war so that others might live, yes, but also to ensure compliance. The Emperor knew what he was making. His Thunder Warriors, predecessors to the Astartes, were discarded when their brutality became inconvenient. The Astartes were meant to be better. Not kinder, not gentler, just more precise. And what happens when such creatures outlive their usefulness? They are not retired. They are not honored. They are sent again and again into the meat grinder until they fall. There are no old Space Marines, only dead ones. Their only rest is death. Their only peace is oblivion. To worship the Space Marines is to worship what we fear most. The idea that strength is virtue, that compassion is weakness, and that only through extermination can safety be found. They are not angels. They are the Emperor's vengeance given form. And when they march, the galaxy burns behind them. There is no law in the Imperium that cannot be broken by a single word, Inquisitor. No boundary that cannot be crossed, no soul that cannot be destroyed, no truth that cannot be buried. The Inquisition is the Imperium's most secretive and terrifying institution, not because it hides in shadows, but because it can erase you from history in broad daylight, and no one will question it. Its agents are the Emperor's scalpel, the executioners of heresy, mutation, corruption, and doubt. They are feared not only by civilians, but by generals, governors, even Space Marines. When an Inquisitor arrives, all protocol halts. They speak with absolute authority. They are not the law. They are beyond it. The Inquisition was born of necessity. The threats the Imperium faces are vast, insidious, and ever-changing. Chaos corrupts from within. Xenos infiltrate silently. Dangerous knowledge seeps through the cracks of a crumbling empire. And so the Inquisition was created to root out these threats, to act decisively where bureaucracies falter and armies hesitate. But the very freedom that makes them effective is what makes them monstrous. There is no oversight, no appeals, no justice, only judgment. An Inquisitor may operate openly or in disguise, alone or with a retinue. Their symbols, the rosette, the eye with the bar and skull, are enough to silence dissent. They can seize resources, conscript soldiers, take over fleets, declare exterminatus, and execute anyone from the lowliest beggar to the most powerful noble. If they suspect heresy, that suspicion alone is justification for death. And what defines heresy? That is up to them. It can be as concrete as worshipping chaos, or as vague as unauthorized philosophical discourse. They are not uniform. The Inquisition is divided into ordos, Hereticus, Xenos, Malleus, among others, each focused on different threats. But even within these divisions, their philosophies vary wildly. The monodominants believe that humanity must be purged of all impurity, even if it means slaughtering entire worlds. The Xanthites believe in using chaos against chaos, skirting the edge of damnation in pursuit of power. Recongregationists wish to tear down and rebuild the Imperium itself. These are not fringe beliefs. They are practiced by inquisitors in good standing, who pass judgment on trillions while harboring ideologies that would be considered treason in any other context. And then there is the terror of the radical inquisitor. These are the ones who delve too deep, who use daemon hosts, forbidden technology, mind control, and warp entities to achieve their goals. Sometimes they succeed, often they fall. But even when they fall, their authority lingers. A radical who becomes a heretic still leaves behind a legacy of destruction. Acolytes who continue their work, secrets that cannot be unlearned, and scars that never heal. Inquisitors are often surrounded by entourages, warbands of agents selected for skill, loyalty, or utility. These retinues include sanctioned psychers, former assassins, tech adepts, mercenaries, and even alien allies. Yes, some inquisitors, in defiance of everything the Imperium stands for, ally with Xenos. They justify it as pragmatism, and who dares argue? When an inquisitor brings a Kroot bodyguard or employs Eldar farseers, those who object are silenced. Not debated. Silenced. The methods they use are horrifying: planetary purges, psychic interrogation, memory erasure, entire populations mind scrubbed into compliance. Some inquisitors deploy mind-wiping gas into cities. Others unleash daemon hosts wrapped in wards, hoping to control them long enough to defeat a greater evil. Some simply declare exterminatus, the total destruction of a world, and move on, never speaking of it again. And what remains? Silence. Ashes. A footnote in the archives, if that. Even worse, they turn on each other. Inquisitorial wars are real. Entire sectors have been engulfed in shadow conflicts between inquisitors whose visions of humanity's survival clash irreconcilably. These are not ideological debates. These are secret assassinations, manipulation of planetary politics, false flag operations, and sometimes open battle. When inquisitors fight, trillions die, and no one outside the Inquisition ever knows why. To speak of them is to invite danger. Civilians do not tell stories about the Inquisition. They whisper warnings. Don't ask questions. Don't talk about the man in black robes. Pray he does not come to our world. Even the ecclesiarchy fears them, because while a cardinal might excommunicate a heretic, an inquisitor will incinerate the entire diocese to be safe. The Mechanicus tolerates them only because they cannot stop them. Even the Space Marines tread carefully, because while they are mighty, they are not above suspicion. And yet there are those who become inquisitors not for power, but for belief. They genuinely want to save humanity. They see the darkness at the galaxy's heart and take up the burden to fight it. These rare souls suffer terribly. They lose themselves in the weight of secrets. They kill innocents to save billions. They grow cold, haunted, and paranoid because they must be. Trust is a weakness. Mercy is an opening. Every moment of hesitation risks another Horus heresy. The true horror of the Inquisition is not that it exists. It is that it must exist. The Imperium is so broken, so threatened from within and without, that only unchecked monsters can guard its shattered soul. And they do so without thanks, without oversight, without hope. They are not heroes. They are not villains. They are what remains when all other options have failed. And in the end, they are feared. Not because they do wrong, but because they can do anything. To understand the Adeptus Mechanicus is to look into the heart of a paradox. One so vast, so fundamentally twisted, that it becomes impossible to tell where reverence ends and dehumanization begins. On the surface, they are the keepers of knowledge, the sacred engineers who maintain the Imperium's titanic machinery. But beneath that metallic surface lies a cult, a vast, rigid religion where the divine is measured in gears, flesh is an impurity, and progress is a heresy in disguise. The Mechanicus is not a branch of the Imperium. It is a separate empire, bound by ancient treaty and mutual dependence. Mars, their holy world, is a realm of toxic red deserts and sprawling forge cathedrals, where every mountain has been hollowed into a foundry, and every glacier melted to feed the needs of machine worship. They do not serve the Emperor as God. Not exactly. They revere the Omnissiah, the machine god, whom many believe to be the Emperor in a different form. But this ambiguity is tolerated, not embraced. The truth is, the Mechanicus would continue to chant their Binheric litanies and offer oil to cogitators even if the rest of the Imperium burned. Their beliefs are rigid, fanatical, and terrifying. To the Mechanicus, knowledge is not discovered, it is remembered. All innovation is considered blasphemy unless it can be traced to a STC, standard template construct, the lost technological blueprints of the dark age of technology. To create something new is not to advance, but to risk damnation. This alone has damned the Imperium to millennia of stagnation. The brightest minds are shackled not by ignorance, but by devotion. They know how to repair plasma reactors, but not how they work. They chant to repair failing systems, hoping their reverence will coax compliance from ancient machines. But it is not only knowledge that suffers under the Mechanicus, it is humanity itself. The tech priests believe the flesh is weak, that the biological body is a flawed vessel, prone to corruption and decay, and so they cut it away. Bit by bit. A tech adept begins with a mechadendrite, then eyes are replaced with augmetics, then the lungs, the voice, the skin. In time, they become machines draped in the memory of flesh, speaking in metallic tones, their thoughts dictated by logical circuits and coded prayer. Emotion is the first casualty. Individuality follows. What remains is a mind consumed by function, not identity. They become extensions of their forge. Their loyalty is to process, not people. Compassion is inefficient. Sympathy is irrelevant. Efficiency is salvation. This transformation is not just accepted, it is glorified. The more inhuman they become, the more respected they are. The highest ranks of the Mechanicus, the Magi, the Fabricator Generals, are no longer recognizable as anything that once walked as a man. They do not build cities, they build machines that contain cities. Their forge worlds are labyrinths of screaming conveyor belts, smog-belching towers, and endless reactor cores. Each world is a shrine to industrial excess, where servitors shuffle endlessly through hallways carved from rust and fire. These lobotomized husks, once men, now nothing, are wired into control panels, used as organic components, fused with tools. They are no longer seen as people. They are infrastructure. The Mechanicus traffics in secrets so vast, so horrifying that entire sectors are purged to protect them. Some forges experiment with Xenos technology. Others toy with AI, the dreaded abominable intelligences. These are forbidden, not because they are dangerous, though they are, but because they threaten the spiritual dogma of the Mechanicus. When such knowledge is uncovered, responses are absolute. Fire, quarantine, memory, erasure. Truth is a contagion, and the machine god demands sterilization. Titans, god machines the size of cities, are the apex of Mechanicus worship. Piloted by crews fused to their thrones, speaking in ritual tongues, they are weapons and temples in one. The Princeps speaks to the Titan through a neural interface, often losing their identity to the machine. When Titans stride into battle, it is not a military maneuver, it is a sacrament. Every shell fired, every step taken, every enemy crushed beneath its treads is a holy act. They are not just killing machines, they are divine avatars. Skitari legions, the Mechanicus' soldiers, are cybernetic nightmares. Controlled from afar, stripped of autonomy, equipped with sensory augments and pain suppressors, they march without hesitation into war zones where even space marines hesitate. They do not scream when burned. They do not flee when outnumbered. Their minds are partitioned, their will overwritten. They are not brave. They are programmed. The horrors of the Mechanicus are not accidental. They are the inevitable outcome of a belief system that replaces discovery with rote memory, individuality with function, and life with circuitry. It is not that they are evil. It is that they do not understand why evil matters. If 1,000,000 die but the machine functions, then the code is satisfied. If a world burns but a relic is recovered, then the rite was successful. The cost is irrelevant, and the Imperium depends on them. Every bolter, every starship, every piece of technology from the simplest Voxcaster to the warp engine of a battlecruiser must pass through Mechanicus' hands. To question their rituals is to invite breakdown. To delay their shipments is to invite war. They are indispensable, and they know it. So the Imperium tolerates them, their rituals, their secrets, their creeping inhumanity, because it has no choice. In a galaxy of flame, the red glow of the forge is the only light, even if it burns away what little remains of the soul. Hatred is doctrine. Xenocide is policy. In the Imperium of Man, to even suggest coexistence with alien species is heresy punishable by death. The galaxy is vast, teeming with life. But to the Imperium, all non-human life is an abomination. Not merely untrustworthy, not simply dangerous, but fundamentally wrong. From the highest echelons of the ecclesiarchy to the lowliest PDF grunt, the creed is universal. Kill the alien, burn the alien, purge the alien. There are no exceptions. There is no diplomacy, there is only war. This hatred is not reactionary, it is foundational. It is taught to children before they can read, reinforced through prayer, propaganda, and fear. Xenos are not opponents, they are monsters. Their very existence is an insult to the Emperor's vision of human supremacy, or so the Imperium claims. But in truth, this xenophobia is not rooted in history. It is rooted in fear. Because in a galaxy of more advanced, more adaptable, or more ancient species, the Imperium has only one advantage: numbers. And numbers, in this context, mean nothing unless they are wielded with unrelenting violence. The Imperium's wars of extermination are not tragic necessities. They are acts of religious zealotry. Entire species have been wiped out not because they posed an imminent threat, but because their biology, their culture, or their very presence was deemed unclean. The Hrud, the Rakgol, the Demiurge, some of these races might have been allies or at least neutral powers, but they are gone now, consumed in fire and silence. The Imperium does not ask questions, it sends fleets. When a new Xenos species is discovered, the process is chillingly predictable. First comes surveillance, then assessment, then condemnation. If the aliens possess advanced technology, that tech is seized. If they resist, planetary bombardment begins. If they survive that, the Inquisition steps in. Worlds are quarantined. Populations are sterilized or executed. Even those who surrender unconditionally are often exterminated, their compliance seen as deception. The alien is not allowed to exist. Period. And the horror goes deeper. Civilians within the Imperium are not even allowed to think positively about Xenos, to speak kindly of an Eldar, to question the Tau's philosophy, to suggest that orcs might be manipulated. These are thought crimes. The Imperium polices not just action, but imagination. Books that mention alien civilizations are banned. Scholars who study Xenos history vanish. Even biological samples are stored under lock, key, and prayer. The Ordo Xenos, a branch of the Inquisition, exists solely to ensure this policy is enforced. Its agents infiltrate academic institutions, military command, even rogue trader fleets. Their goal is not understanding, it is containment and deletion. They do not want to learn about the alien. They want to erase the alien. Not just from the galaxy, but from memory. The very idea of the alien must be associated only with fear and fire. And yet, even within this genocidal framework, there are contradictions. Rogue traders, operating under ancient charters, are allowed to interact with Xenos, to trade, to study, sometimes even to negotiate. The Mechanicus, in its desperation for lost knowledge, occasionally hoards alien relics, studying them in secret. Some Inquisitors ally with alien mercenaries for tactical reasons. These hypocrisies are not signs of mercy, they are signs of desperation. The Imperium uses what it must, then lies about it. The Tau Empire, for example, has extended offers of diplomacy, real diplomacy, not traps, and some human worlds have accepted, seduced by promises of equality and peace. The Imperium's response is always the same: obliteration. These worlds are labeled heretical, their populations purged. Even the mere suggestion of working with the Tau is considered apostasy. Why? Because the Tau expose the Imperium's failures. They offer something the Imperium cannot, a future that isn't built on bones. The Eldar, ancient, dying, and often enigmatic, have aided humanity at times. They have warned of chaos incursions, fought alongside Imperial forces, even saved worlds from destruction. But none of this matters. The Imperium does not forget their past sins, and so even when they offer help, the guns remain trained on them. Even when they bleed for humanity, they are cursed as vermin. The galaxy is not allowed nuance. The Imperium will not tolerate it. Perhaps the most damning proof of the Imperium's blind hatred is its response to the Tyranids. This extragalactic swarm threatens all life, human and alien alike. It devours without malice, without ideology. It is a hunger made flesh. And yet, even in the face of this apocalyptic threat, the Imperium refuses to ally with other races. Eldar warnings are ignored, Tau strategies are rejected. Orcs, who might be turned against the Tyranids with the right push, are simply attacked as usual. Unity is heresy. Cooperation is death. This is not strength. This is suicide on a galactic scale. And in the rare moments where peace is possible, it is crushed. Take the Interrex, a human offshoot civilization encountered during the Great Crusade. Peaceful, advanced, tolerant, they coexisted with Xenos. When they met the Emperor's forces, they offered dialogue. The response? Misunderstanding, sabotage, war. The Interrex was wiped out, not because they were dangerous, but because they were different. The horror is not just in the killing. It's in the refusal to consider any alternative. The Imperium cannot afford to see aliens as people, because if it does, it must confront what it has done and what it continues to do. And so it doubles down. It burns, it purges, it dehumanizes everything that is not human, even when it costs everything. In this galaxy, the Imperium is not the only monster, but it is the only one that insists its slaughter is a moral duty, that its hatred is a form of love. And that genocide is not just acceptable, it is holy. There are soldiers and then there are sacrifices. In the Imperium of Man, the Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard, is not an army in the traditional sense. It is a torrent of bodies, a storm of meat and steel hurled across the stars with no end, no mercy, and no glory. These are not the elite, not the augmented, not the chosen. These are ordinary humans, drawn from every wretched corner of the galaxy, handed a lasgun and a flak vest, and told to hold the line, even when there is no line left to hold. To be a guardsman is to be cannon fodder by design. Every regiment raised is calculated not by potential, but by expendability. If a planet has 10 billion souls, then 10 million can be tithed to the war. No consideration is given to training, equipment, or survivability. What matters is presence. The sheer, overwhelming presence of countless boots marching toward the enemy, dying in droves so that one might land a shot, that matters. That is the doctrine. That is the strategy. Human life, deployed en masse, in place of tactics. Each world contributes its own regiments, shaped by its environment. From the frozen wastes of Valhalla come soldiers hardened against the cold, stoic, and grim. From the jungle hells of Katachan, muscled brutes with combat instincts rivaling feral predators. From Vostroya, regiments of proud warriors clad in antique armor. Each is romanticized in propaganda, turned into myth, but none are spared the truth. They are all fuel. Their unique traits make no difference to the hungry maw of war. The war zones they fight in are beyond comprehension. There are planets that rain acid, moons that bleed psychic torment, void ships infested with warp creatures, and trenches carved through cities that once held billions. A guardsman might be deployed to a world whose name they cannot pronounce, whose sky they never see, whose cause they never understand. Orders arrive as static-laced Vox commands. Objectives are measured in meters. Success is counted in corpses, theirs or the enemy's, it does not matter. Most guardsmen die nameless. Their bodies are not recovered, their deeds are not recorded. At best, their regiment receives a citation. At worst, it is declared lost with no further inquiry. Their commissars, officers of faith and fear, ensure discipline with bolt pistol executions. If a squad retreats, one dies as an example. If a unit hesitates, a shell lands behind them. It is not just the enemy they fear, it is their own command. And yet, in the face of such cruelty, they fight. Not out of zeal or hope or even hatred. They fight because they must. Because they have no choice, because to disobey is to be shot, because to survive is to be sent into the next battle, because somewhere, buried beneath the terror and exhaustion, there is a flicker of camaraderie, not heroism but shared suffering. A guardsman learns to love not the Imperium but the man or woman beside them. That is their family, their shield, their only prayer. Their equipment is pitiful. Las guns, the standard weapon, are derided even by their users. More flashlight than firearm, they require numbers to be effective. Flak armor barely stops shrapnel. Their vehicles, like the Chimera or the Lehman Russ, are reliable but crude, often operated by conscripts with minimal training. Air support is rare. Orbital support is a myth. Logistics are chaos. Ammunition shortages, food rationing, and medical negligence are the norm. And yet, they achieve miracles. Not through skill, not through planning, but through sheer, unimaginable sacrifice. In wars against the Tyranids, guardsmen have held cities with their bare hands, erecting barricades from corpses. Against chaos incursions, they've stood their ground even as reality fractured around them. They've faced Necron weapons that dissolve atoms, or cords that never stop charging, and Eldar strikes that seem to defy time. And still they hold. Not because they are great, but because they refuse to break. Their heroism is unrecognized. Their suffering is unrecorded. Statistically, a guardsman's life expectancy in a war zone is measured in hours. There are soldiers who have survived dozens of deployments, and they are considered strange, even suspect. Some are reassigned to penal legions, cursed with continued service. Others become commissars themselves, perpetuating the same system that nearly destroyed them. There is no retirement, no pension, no end. Entire regiments are deployed into zones of planetary extermination, knowing full well they will not return. Sometimes this is intentional. The Departamento Munitorum deploys unwanted or unstable units into hopeless situations to clear the books. Sometimes political enemies are conscripted en masse and sent to die. The Guard is not just a tool of defense, it is a method of disposal. But the worst horror is that the Guard works. It succeeds. Worlds are held, enemies are pushed back, campaigns are won, not through brilliance, but through attrition. Millions die so that the galaxy does not fall. The cost is unthinkable, but in the Imperium, cost is irrelevant. Only survival matters. The Astra Militarum is not noble, it is not glorious, it is a tragedy that repeats endlessly. Every guardsman is a martyr to a cause that does not care for them. Every victory is a mass grave. Every banner raised is stained with blood. And yet, they march, because to stop marching is to fall. And there is no mercy in the Imperium, only orders and the endless echo of boots on mud. The warp is not a place. It is not even a dimension in the way mortals understand it. It is a reflection of emotion, a churning ocean of thought, hatred, lust, hope, despair, raw, formless, infinite. And yet the Imperium of man relies upon it utterly. Every interstellar voyage, every astropathic message, every flicker of psychic power is a thread pulled from this nightmare realm. The Imperium is addicted to the warp, and the cost of that addiction is paid in human souls. To navigate the stars, starships must dive into the warp, a realm where time bends, physics breaks, and demons hunger for a crack in reality. Without the Astronomicon, the psychic lighthouse powered by 1,000 screaming psychers a day, these voyages would be suicide. But even with it, every journey is a gamble. Ships vanish, crews go mad. Some return decades later, unchanged, to find their homes turned to dust. Others are twisted into monstrosities, spat out as ghost ships haunted by what they saw, or what became of them. And yet, this is the only way the Imperium can function. Warp travel is not a luxury, it is the nervous system of the Empire. Every fleet movement, every supply run, every urgent order depends on it. Without the warp, the Imperium would fragment in days. But this dependence is not maintained by technology. It is maintained by psychers. Humans born with the terrifying ability to touch the warp, to manipulate reality with their minds. These are not wizards, they are conduits. And they are cursed. Sanctioned psychers are perhaps the most tragic figures in the galaxy. Hunted from birth by the black ships of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica, they are ripped from their homes, their families, their lives. Most are culled immediately, their minds too weak, too fractured, too dangerous. A select few are subjected to the Scholastica Psychana, where they are trained, conditioned, and broken into usable tools. They are not taught to thrive. They are taught to survive, just long enough to serve. Every psyker lives with the constant threat of possession. Daemons of the warp watch them like wolves circling a wounded deer. A single moment of weakness, of doubt, of uncontrolled emotion, and a psyker can become a portal, a doorway through which hell pours into reality. The Imperium understands this and responds accordingly, with chains, shock collars, null fields, and death squads. If a sanctioned psyker twitches the wrong way, a bolt pistol is already loaded. Their lives are short. Most are consumed in the process of their service. Astropaths, blind, emaciated communicators, burn out over time, their minds fried by the raw psychic strain. Battle psychers are hurled onto the front lines, expected to tear apart tanks or enemy souls with a thought, often dying from the effort. Navigators, twisted by generations of warp mutation, stare into the storm with a third eye, an eye that burns them out from within. But the worst fate is reserved for the soul-binding. To power the Astronomicon, the great beacon that guides all Imperial ships, thousands of psychers are sacrificed daily. They are flayed, dismembered, their spirits consumed to feed the Emperor's withering corpse. This is not metaphor. This is fact. Every day, the black ships unload their human cargo onto Terra. Every day, they march in chains to the golden halls. Every day, they die, screaming in ways no prayer can ease. And the Imperium praises this. It honors it. Statues are built to celebrate the sacrifice. Hymns are sung for the Emperor's mercy. The reality that these psychers are victims of a system so broken it must burn its own lifeblood to continue is buried under litanies and incense. Civilians are told they are heroes, but they are not remembered. They are not mourned. They are necessary. The paradox is cruel. Psychers are both essential and reviled. Civilians fear them, priests condemn them, soldiers distrust them. And yet without them, the Imperium collapses. So they are tolerated, barely, watched constantly, controlled tightly, and when they are no longer useful, they are disposed of, often with a bullet, sometimes with a ritual. And still, psychers are born. More and more with every passing century. The warp bleeds into reality, and humanity's own evolution turns against it. The rise of psychers is not a triumph, it is a sign of doom. A psychic arms race against the demonic forces that lurk just beyond the veil. A contest humanity cannot win. Because even its strongest psychers, even the mighty Primaris-grade assets, are nothing to the true powers of the warp. They are children trying to command a storm. Sometimes psychers break. They become rogue, refusing the Imperium's leash, trying to survive alone. These are hunted with relentless cruelty, captured, tortured, dissected. And if they resist too hard, exterminatus. A single unstable psycher can doom a planet. The Imperium knows this, and so it burns first, asks questions never. The black ships continue their voyages, silent, dreadful, unstoppable. Their arrival is a death sentence. Entire communities vanish when they land. No names are taken, no appeals accepted. The population accepts it because they must, because if they don't, the Inquisition will come, and then fire will fall from the skies. This is the cost of survival, not victory. Not prosperity, just survival. The warp is hell, and the Imperium feeds its people to it daily, not because it wants to, but because it has no other choice. And that is the true horror, not the sacrifice, not the screams, but the silence with which it is accepted. There is no safety in being ordinary. In the Imperium of man, to be a civilian is not to live. It is to survive at the whim of a monstrous machine that neither sees nor values you. You are not a citizen. You are not a soul. You are a data point, a grain of sand in a desert of flesh, born into a world that will chew you to the bone and forget your name before your corpse goes cold. And the most terrifying part? You are expected to be grateful. The average Imperial citizen does not know what galaxy they live in. They do not understand the nature of the warp, the existence of other species, or even the basic structure of the Imperium itself. This is not ignorance by circumstance, it is ignorance by design. Knowledge is dangerous, truth is treason. The Administratum, Ecclesiarchy, and Inquisition conspire, intentionally and systemically, to keep the masses locked in a fog of sanctioned myths and doctrinal lies. They are not allowed to question. They are not even allowed to wonder. Most are born into hive cities, towering arcologies that stretch from crust to cloud, where pollution blots out the sun and violence is as common as breath. These people work in manufactoria, so ancient that no one remembers what they were first built to produce. They rise, if they sleep at all, to the sound of klaxons and overseer commands. They eat recycled protein paste that tastes like rust. They are branded, numbered, and slotted into labor units. Their dreams are irrelevant, their individuality a problem. Even if they never see war, they are subject to fear beyond imagining. Random purges for suspected heresy, sanctioned arrests based on rumor or quota. Fire drills that turn real when a daemon infestation erupts from a ruptured warp engine 3 sectors away. The enforcers, local law enforcement, are not here to protect. They are here to suppress. With shock malls, riot gear, and arbitrary authority, they police the populace with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Worse still, most civilians don't know who rules them. The Adeptus Terra is a distant concept. The Emperor is a divine blur. Orders come from faceless administrators relayed by scribes, enforced by drones, amplified by picked casters that blare litanies louder than thought. In this cacophony, personal will vanishes. Your purpose is what you are told it is. Your sins are what the local priest says they are. And your death will not be noticed. Religion dominates everything. There are no secular citizens. Every aspect of life is wrapped in faith, or more accurately, in fear disguised as faith. To skip prayer is a crime. To question a miracle is blasphemy. To read an unauthorized book is heresy. The ecclesiarchy maintains constant oversight, ensuring that even your internal world is not your own. Confession booths record not to forgive, but to report. Pilgrimages are mandatory. Faith is not personal, it is enforced. Some civilians are chosen for conscription. Others are taken by the black ships. Some vanish into servitor factories, lobotomized and mechanized. These disappearances are rarely explained. Families are told it is an honor. They are expected to rejoice. Grief is discouraged. Memory is dangerous. Hope is treason. Education, if it exists, is indoctrination. Children memorize the names of saints, the deeds of martyrs, and the proper way to clean a bolter. They do not learn history, only hagiography. They do not learn science, only the rites of maintenance. The brightest minds are not rewarded, they are feared. Intelligence breeds questions, and questions breed death. Entertainment is a weapon. Approved dramas depict only imperial victories. Newsreels show only sanctioned heroism. Music, when not composed of war drums and litanies, is considered decadent. Art is restricted to religious imagery. Poetry, if it survives, is read in secret, traded in coded fragments, and spoken with glances more than words. Even love is dangerous. To love too fiercely is to risk disloyalty to the emperor. To grieve too deeply is to suggest something is more important than duty. Marriages are arranged, reproduction is often state-controlled, and families can be broken up at a whim. Bonds between people are tolerated only so long as they serve the Imperium. And yet, through all this, there are those who still feel, who still hope. They gather in shadows, whisper forbidden stories of lost terra, of the emperor before he became a god. They trade fragments of contraband history. They dream, not of rebellion, for they know that is suicide, but of something else, something human. And that is the greatest heresy of all, to remember what it means to be human, to feel love unfiltered by doctrine, to cry for reasons not written in a catechism, to laugh without fear of surveillance. In the Imperium, these things are not just rare, they are dangerous. Because they remind people of a time before the nightmare, of a galaxy that might have been. The true horror of civilian life in the Imperium is not that it is hard. It is that it is so thoroughly controlled, so deeply invaded by fear and ignorance, that the people within it no longer know they are suffering. They are told they are blessed. They are told they are chosen. They are told they are safe. And they believe it, because to believe otherwise is to die, or worse, to be noticed. Truth has no place in the Imperium. It is not suppressed, it is slaughtered, buried beneath layers of sacred dogma, burnt manuscripts, and rewritten histories. In this empire of unrelenting war and mechanized obedience, propaganda is not simply a tool. It is the very air its people breathe. Lies are stitched into the hymns of the ecclesiarchy, coded into the binary cant of the Mechanicus, and carved into the stonework of imperial monuments. The Imperium does not merely distort the truth, it annihilates it and replaces it with faith, fear, and forgetfulness. Censorship is omnipresent. Every book, every data slate, every picked record must be reviewed, stamped, and approved by multiple layers of authority. The Lex Imperialis dictates the limits of acceptable thought, and those limits are ever shrinking. Knowledge from before the age of Imperium is considered suspect. Scientific understanding is viewed with suspicion. Anything remotely resembling innovation is treated as potential heresy. It does not matter if an idea is harmless. If it is new, it is dangerous. Entire libraries are sealed away under planetary vaults. Archives are lost not to decay, but to deliberate deletion. History is rewritten constantly. The Horus Heresy, perhaps the single most important event in imperial history, is known to most citizens only as a vague tale of betrayal. The true scale, the godlike powers, the fall of the Primarchs, the Emperor's own role, is buried under euphemism and half-truths. Even the existence of chaos is denied to most. Instead, the threats are described as rebels, witches, or dark powers. Accurate terminology is forbidden. To name a daemon is to invite death. This systematic destruction of knowledge is not an accident. It is policy. It is defense. The Imperium has concluded that truth leads to doubt, and doubt leads to corruption. And so, truth is excised. Curiosity is not rewarded, it is hunted. Scholars are monitored, archaeologists are executed, historians either recite the approved script or vanish. The past is dangerous because it contains context. Context allows comparison, and comparison breeds dissatisfaction. Propaganda fills the void. Massive PIC displays blare loyalty messages 24 hours a day. Children are shown stylized cartoons of heroic commissars executing cowards. Sermons are broadcast into workplaces, where laborers recite responses without thought. Even moments of silence are filled with audio loops of imperial virtue. And it works, not because the people believe it, but because there's nothing else. Doubt becomes a luxury. Silence becomes consent. The ecclesiarchy is the master of this machinery. Its litanies are carefully curated, its saints manufactured, its miracles staged when necessary. Martyrs are chosen not for virtue, but for narrative value. Every sermon serves dual purposes, to glorify the emperor and to erase everything else. Entire cultures have been overwritten by imperial dogma. Languages have been outlawed. Art styles have been replaced with iconography approved by the church. Memory itself is colonized. And when cracks appear, the Inquisition steps in. If a planet rediscovers a pre-imperial database, it is not celebrated, it is purged. If a population begins to ask too many questions, its leaders disappear. If an artist paints something that inspires contemplation rather than obedience, they are labeled a heretic. The truth is not just feared, it is seen as a contagion, one that spreads faster than plague and burns worlds more thoroughly than any virus. Even the Mechanicus, for all its obsession with knowledge, censors itself. Its tech priests worship blueprints without understanding them and disassemble relics not to learn, but to appease the machine god. Those who deviate, who study without permission, who question the rituals, are branded as tech heresy. And tech heresy is often punished with the same finality as demonic possession. A genius could hold the cure to a hive plague in his hands and still be flayed alive for bypassing sacred protocol. This extends to every walk of life. In the Astra Militarum, soldiers are told only what they need to know. If an enemy is a chaos warband, it will be described simply as traitors. If it's a Necron force, it may be called animated xenoconstructs. The details are irrelevant. The command structure relies on blind execution. Understanding is not required. In fact, it is discouraged. A soldier who understands too much might question their orders. And in the Imperium, a question is a blade at the emperor's throat. And so, generation after generation, the Imperium forgets. It forgets the stars it once colonized, the technologies it once mastered, the freedoms it once cherished. All that remains is the present, a brutal, blood-soaked now, propped up by a false past and an unreachable future. Hope is rebranded as loyalty. Progress is rebranded as faith. And knowledge is burned. The result is a civilization where no one knows why they suffer, only that they must. A galaxy where every mind is chained not just by fear but by deliberate unknowing, where lies are not hidden but sung, where truth is not just absent, it is criminal. And the most terrible part, most do not even realize it is gone. The Imperium does not grow, it endures. It does not strive toward something better, it merely refuses to collapse. And in that grim determination lies the most profound and suffocating horror of all, the utter absence of hope, progress, or peace. It is not just that the Imperium is brutal, it is that it has no future, none. It is a civilization petrified in place, frozen by fear, rotted by orthodoxy, and poisoned by a past it can neither abandon nor understand. In its early days, under the Emperor's vision, there was a glimmer of advancement, the dream of a unified mankind, guided by reason, science, and unity. That dream died with Horus. Or perhaps it died even earlier, the moment the Emperor decided to wield deception and dogma as tools of conquest. Whatever the case, the result is the same. A galaxy-wide machine that does not repair itself, does not innovate, does not dream. It simply survives. Everything is ritual. To fix a plasma generator is not an act of engineering, it is a rite. To prepare a battleship for launch is not logistics, it is liturgy. To maintain a bolter is to chant to its machine spirit, not to understand how it fires. No one questions why the systems are failing. No one dares ask how to improve them. They merely follow instructions written in blood, copied from tattered scrolls, whispered by predecessors who themselves barely understood. Innovation is treason. The Mechanicus, with all its knowledge, forbids new thought. The Ecclesiarchy, with all its influence, forbids new interpretation. The Administratum, with all its bureaucracy, forbids efficiency. Every part of the Imperium conspires to keep things as they are, not because this is best, but because change is dangerous. Chaos exploits uncertainty. The warp devours idealism. Better, they believe, to stagnate than to risk. But stagnation is its own form of death. Ships decay in orbit, held together by prayer and desperation. Planets fall into ruin, their infrastructure beyond repair. Entire systems are lost, not to war, but to neglect. Once the tides stop, once the astropaths go silent, those worlds are considered dead. No expedition is launched. No questions are asked. They are simply erased from the maps. And in the absence of progress, madness grows. Every victory is temporary. Every campaign is defensive. The Imperium is not reclaiming the galaxy. It is defending scraps of it. And it is losing. Slowly, inevitably, it is being chipped away by orcs, tyrannids, necrons, Eldar chaos, and even time itself. For every world liberated, 5 fall. For every relic recovered, 10 are forgotten. It is a slow, grinding extinction disguised as resistance. The people know this. Even if they do not say it aloud, they feel it in the ever-present fear. In the tightening of restrictions, in the increase of tithes, in the deepening of ritual. The walls are closing in, and still the Imperium demands more. More sacrifice, more loyalty, more silence. The only thing more terrifying than a collapsing empire is an empire that refuses to admit it is collapsing. There are no movements for reform, no public calls for renewal. To suggest improvement is to invite execution. To suggest peace is to be labeled a traitor. To even mention an alternative path is to be declared a heretic. This is not an accident. It is policy. The Imperium cannot allow its people to believe things could be better, because if they do, they might question why they are suffering. And if they question that, they might rebel. So the lie persists. That the Emperor protects. That the Imperium is eternal. That every horror is necessary. And in the deepest parts of the galaxy, far from any command structure, far from any shrine world or forge complex, entire worlds believe it. They toil, they bleed, they die. Never knowing why. Never knowing that nothing will change. Because the truth is this, the Imperium of Man is not fighting to win. It is fighting not to die. And even that it is losing, but slowly, painfully, with just enough illusion, just enough violence, just enough inertia to convince itself that survival is victory. There are no Renaissance periods on the horizon. No breakthroughs waiting to be discovered. No golden ages to return to. The Emperor will not rise. The Primarchs will not rebuild. The warp will not recede. The galaxy will not be saved. It will burn and bleed and rot and scream, and the Imperium will call that order. This is not destiny. This is damnation. Not inflicted by an enemy, not forced by some cruel god, but chosen, repeated, and enforced by humanity itself. Out of fear, out of habit, out of the sheer terror of believing anything else could exist. And in that silence, in that refusal to hope, lies the true horror. Not the violence, not the fire, but the emptiness. A galaxy where nothing will ever get better, and everyone already knows it. We cheer for monsters. That is the final, strangest truth. In a galaxy where the Imperium of Man is a colossus of suffering, oppression, and apocalyptic violence, we still raise its banners in fiction. We wear aquilas on our chests, paint our miniatures with proud golds and crimson reds, memorize the names of chapters and saints, and cry out for the Emperor, as if it meant something noble. We know, deeply, intimately, that the Imperium is a horror. And yet we love it. But that love is not naive, it is not blind, it is something far more complicated. It is the love of a shared nightmare. The Imperium is not a role model. It is not a hope for the future, it is a warning. It is a reflection of every dystopia humanity has ever flirted with, every theocracy, every fascist state, every blind war machine that turned its people into cogs. And because it is so vast, so extreme, so unrepentantly dark, it becomes something mythic. Something operatic, something beautiful in its grandeur, even as it devours everything it touches. We are not drawn to the Imperium because it is good. We are drawn to it because it shows us what happens when good is forgotten. And within its towering misery, there are slivers of humanity that shine brighter than in any utopia. The guardsman who holds the line with nothing but faith and a faulty lasgun. The sister of battle who dies not for glory, but to spare a single child from a worse fate. The inquisitor who against every instinct, chooses mercy. These moments matter because they are rare. They are sparks in a drowned world, and we cling to them because they remind us of who we are beneath the armor, the dogma, the fear. We also admire its aesthetics, the Baroque armor, the thunderous cathedrals, the grim iconography that fuses religion, technology, and brutality into something breathtaking. It is the Gothic made real, the sacred turned profane, the sacred turned into steel. We are awed by it, even as we recoil. There is a seductive beauty in its ruin, a kind of truth in its excess. It does not pretend to be just. It does not wear a mask. And in that honesty, twisted though it is, we find something magnetic. The Imperium also unites us in our own miniature ways, through games, through stories, through shared lore. It gives us a space to explore what war does to people, what fear does to civilization, what it means to endure when there's nothing left but duty. And in that exploration, we ask questions that matter. What would I do in such a world? Would I kneel? Would I rebel? Would I be brave? Would I be cruel? This paradox of loving what we would never wish to live under is not hypocrisy. It is catharsis. It is the understanding that sometimes the best mirror is not a peaceful one, but one cracked, burned, and bloodstained. The Imperium is our dark mirror, and in that mirror we find stories that resonate deeper than comfort ever could. So yes, we cheer for the Imperium. We paint its warriors, write its epics, immerse ourselves in its horror. Not because we believe in it, but because we understand it, because it frightens us. Because it reminds us of the razor's edge between order and tyranny, faith and madness, sacrifice and waste. And maybe, just maybe, because somewhere in that nightmare, we still see the smallest flicker of human defiance. A single guardsman lighting a candle in the dark. A single voice whispering a forbidden truth. A single dream that one day it could all be different. If this journey through the true horrors of the Imperium has stirred something in you, a sense of awe, of dread, of fascination, then join us. Subscribe to the channel, dive deeper into the lore, and help keep these stories alive. For in a galaxy without mercy, knowledge is the last rebellion.